Hey everybody, so we're back here now and I've got a couple of different camera angles going for you guys. For those of y'all who just joined me, if I remember to, I will be putting a link to the previous video where I cut out all the different pieces of this leather vest, like how the one that I'm wearing is. And that's how we got to where we are now. But we have cut them out. If you hadn't dyed it already, you've gone ahead and dyed it. And now we're going to go through with this tool, which is a little edge rounder. And it cost a pretty penny at Tandy Leather, but it is worth its weight in gold because it really makes fixing up your corners, making them nice and rounded and uniform, so much easier. And you can always go in whenever they're like having a sale or something, or hunt around on eBay, or just, use whatever shopping tricks and tips you prefer. So I'm going to come through, and all of the angles that are nice and nice and tight, like stuff like this angle here is a little too obtuse, like it's too wide, whereas this one here is perfect for getting rounded. Sorry, my allergies are still bothering me. Okay, making sure I'm nice and in frame. And so I'm just going to be lining up this tool here. You don't want to exceed the corners, like you don't want it biting in like that. You just want it to get a nice round. Excuse me. Just like that. And it just pops off that little corner. And makes it very nice and rounded, just like that. And so we're going to go through and we're going to do this to all of the corners. Oops. And throw it on the ground periodically. Excuse me. I'm so sorry about my allergies. Like, my nose has just been running all day. So hopefully it's not picking up on my sniffles too much. Like this one here, it just wasn't quite pointy enough. But yeah, so there we go. So there's one side. I'm just going to stack the done pieces right here, I guess. Excuse me. And you could very easily just go through and do this with scissors. Which on a thin leather like this is no problem at all, but on thicker pieces of leather, like for those of y'all who follow my work, if you've seen my leather corset tutorial, that's one of them that I would not want to go through, excuse me, with scissors and have to round all those corners, just because, I mean, it's sometimes the leather's a centimeter thick, and it just, it's really hard to maintain control over the scissors on leather that thick. And this makes pretty quick uniform work of it too. And the really nice thing about tools like this is so long as you take care of them, they're virtually indestructible. Like whenever you're using any kind of punch, always make sure that you're using, a cutting board. This is just a high density plastic cutting board. And I've been using it almost exclusively for all of my punching. I did get a travel size one, like a little smaller, like 6-inch square one that I use when we're on the road, but other than that, this is my only cutting surface, and it does a really good job of holding up to all the punctures and prods and everything over the years. Okay. Now if you mess up a little bit and it does catch in, all we're going to do is grab our leather shears, like if you can see how that kind of messed up. We're just going to take our leather shears, line it up, and snip. Get that nice and even. So that's what happens if you mess up, and it can take a little while of getting a hang of it, but you'll get there. And there's really no right or wrong way. Like, you could be holding this, oops, I did it again. You could be doing this, you know, with the punch in your right hand and the mallet in your left hand, or, you know, just whichever feels most natural and comfortable and efficient for you. And it can feel kind of clumsy at first if you're right-handed holding the tool in the left hand. But the more you practice, the more dexterous you'll become. And this is our last piece. Yeah, that was just not quite pointy enough to need to do that on it. Okay, so there's that, and I'm going to put the tool away. And our next step is going to be, oh goodness, where is it? It might be over here. Okay. The next step is to take, this is a punch that has 4 little hole punches in it, and these are 1/8 inch or the 1/16 inch hole punches. So it gives a nice small hole. But what we're going to be doing here is kind of eyeballing. You can go through and use your wing divider or another tool that does the same purpose if you can figure that out. Like, sometimes just a homemade one will do just fine. And you'll kind of mark periodically through, like that's not quite as wide as I want it. So like, we're functioning on a like 5mm in from the edge. You can just kind of mark and score. I don't even know if the cameras will pick up on this, but for most of it, I'm just going to be doing this small stitch depth, but for down the center of the back and then the center of the front, I want to actually do like a solid, 2 centimeters, I think, just to give us lots of room. No, I think 15mm will be okay. Just getting this gauged. There we go. And it's because I'm going to be encasing a piece of leather here on this side, and I want to make sure I can fit that piece of leather in there. So I'm just going to take this one and kind of just score a line. And I'm going to do that on both sides of the back, where that, for lack of a better term, boning is going to be encased. Now it's just a piece of leather. You could use steel boning if you wanted. I don't ever recommend plastic boning because it's almost not even worth the money you put into it for something like this, where there's going to be a lot of curves and stuff. And then we're going to do the same thing up in the front. Now, I feel very strongly about the leather boning because I know that while the leather will heat up and become more supple, it will kind of go back to its original shape over time, and you don't ever have to worry about it like snapping or anything like that the way that you do with some of the spring steel and plastic bonings. And it's just a little bit more comfortable. It's not going to work its way out of the fabric or out of the leather and like stab you and stuff in the boobs. So now I'm going to take my hole punch and I'm going to line it up with that line. So I don't know if y'all can see, I'll show you on this one, just the way that it's lining up there. And then I'm going to use my hammer, and it just does 4 little holes. And then I'll line up with my oldest hole, and then add 3. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to insert my first punch into that 4th hole, and that keeps all of my punches very nice and even. Make sure you get a good clean straight through the leather each time. And sometimes on these punches, this back can get kind of wobbly. Let me see. Is this the right? Yeah. So you just grab a screwdriver and just tighten that down. I don't know why. It's just, I guess all the hammering just loosens it over time. There we go. And I'm just going to continuously, all the way around, punch these little holes out. And this can really start to make quick work of it. Just be careful to stay on your line. And whenever you start coming close up to an end here, let's see, that brings it just a little too close to the edge for my taste. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it back a notch. So 2 of the punches are lining up into holes that have already been punched, and I'm just going to punch like that. And so you can kind of see how that ended. And so now, coming back around the rest of here, I want to keep about 1/4 of an inch, like hem, I guess, edging, and I just eyeball it. You can be however meticulous or not meticulous as you'd like to be, but I prefer to not have that little scratch of the wing divider in between all the way around. So I'm just gonna eyeball it. And whenever I'm eyeballing it, I just line up my, I watch that 4th punch, the last punch, in line, and because wherever I position it, it'll be guiding the other 3, or the other 2 new holes. And then that gives me a hole to line up in, and then I just eyeball it again. So it's right here on this one that I'm focusing on. Then again, every time I get to one of the ends, that brings it way too close to the edge, so I'm just going to scooch it back a notch. Yep. So there we are, just perfect. And I feel like it's perfectly okay to have a couple of millimeters variance in how far you are from the edge. Like right here, this hole is, you know, it's almost, you know, not, it's a centimeter in from this edge, so it's, you know, not exactly perfectly placed. But what I'll do is just position that there and then line this one up with where I want it to be, and that gives me a gradual decrease into the right measurement for what I'm going for. And so we'll just keep hammering all the way around. And I'm not going to make y'all watch me do all the pieces for this, but I do want to kind of complete this one. Just so that you can see and really get an idea, because whenever you sit down and do your own leather vest or for a client or something, I want you to have a really solid grasp of what's going on. Now here on this one, again, it's almost a 1/2 inch away from this edge, so I'm just going to keep it consistent all the way across and then pick back up where I was. Because consistency is key here. If you just be like, okay, well, if it's a 1/2 inch here, I'm going to keep it 1/2 inch all the way across, you know, it makes it look like you did it on purpose. Okay, now we're on the last leg of it here, and this literally makes it a fourth of the time that it would be if you were using just one punch. So maybe a third of the time, I don't know, since it's not doing 4 new holes every time. But it definitely does help get the job done, I do believe. There we go, and it just worked out very serendipitously that it lines up just perfectly for where that first hole was. And there we go. Okay, so from here, let's pretend we have punched the holes on all of the pieces. Oh, you no go. We're pretending we've punched the holes around the edging of all of the pieces. Before I do my lacing, I like to set my eyelets, just because the lacing can add a little bit of a bulge there and sometimes get in the way. Whereas the eyelets never get in the way of the lacing, whereas the lacing can sometimes get in the way of the eyelets, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to pull my wing divider here. I'm going to open it up to 1 inch. There we go. And I'm going to measure up here from the bottom. Well, I guess from the top. Yeah. I want to keep it kind of equidistant away from the 2 sides here. So there's 1, 2. Press down nice and firm. And I'm just making little dots, little indentions into the leather to show where I want to go through and punch the 1/4 inch hole for the eyelets. Okay. So now, I mean, they're real faint, but you can kind of see them. So now I'm going to come through and I'm going to line my punch up. I usually just do the edge of the punch lined up with the hole and just punch it out like that. But however you do it, whether you have the hole centered up inside the punch or lined up with the edge of it, you want to be consistent about your punch placement in relation to the hole. Okay. So there's all the holes that we're going to put the eyelets in. I feel like it's very important to put eyelets in. That way, since this is a thinner leather, as it heats up and if you're sweating and stuff and you're tight-lacedly into it, it's not going to pull and stretch the leather around the hole. It'll have that metal reinforcement there. And now we'll need some eyelets. Excuse me. Some eyelets. I feel a sneeze coming on. It's driving me crazy. Excuse me. We'll need some eyelets along the side here, and that's if you become one of our $15 and up patrons, you'll have access to our patterns, and you'll be able to download it and print it off, and it'll have marked where the holes will be punched, where the eyelets would be, different things like that. So it really helps you kind of piece it together. So we're going to place our ring dividers. Divider 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then we're going to place the punch. Just like that. And then I think we're only going to get 2 holes up here. And since I don't want them too close to the edge, I'm actually going to line this one up on that side of the hole, and I'm going to line this one up on the inside of the hole. So I'm going to make the holes be a little closer together than what they would have been normally. So there's one. There's two. Okay. So those are all the holes punched. Now for those of y'all who haven't purchased or who aren't patrons or purchased a pattern from me or anything like that, I still am going to go through and show you the steps, like where the stuff would be, just to kind of help you along. I try to make this information kind of available to everybody. So I'm going to repeat this same patterning on this side with the 7 holes, the 4 holes, and the 2 holes. Excuse me. And then right here is one of the front panels. So it'll be 2 holes, however many, and then however many. This side won't have any boning because it's the part that's going over the fullest part of the bosom. But you just want to make sure that where pieces are being laced together, they're going to line up. So because I'm going to do some of this off camera so that this isn't like a million-year-long tutorial. But I do want to show you how to join the curves. The inside curve to the outside curve. And so the way that we're going to do this is we're going to have our wing divider. I'm already going to have the lacing 1/4 of an inch the way in from the edge, so I want my holes to be about this far in, and I'm going to be consistent about that all the way around. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and again, I just focus on this distance here. The wing divider is already taking care of the length distance between the holes. I just need to make sure it's not too close or too far away from the edge. So there's our 5th hole, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so now those were, let's double count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I might have double counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, since there's 10 eyelets on this one, we'll want to make sure that there are 10 eyelets on this one. So our spacing is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go through initially, doing very lightly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it worked out perfect. And this way, whenever they're bound together, like laced up, it's gonna put a bulge and a curve into the cup there, where it'll be going over the roundness of the bosom. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go punch the rest of these holes, and then I'll meet you guys right back here to put the eyelets in, and then to start the lacing, which is like pretty time consuming. Like it's more time consuming than everything else put together, but totally worth the effect, I think. So I'll meet y'all right back here then. Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and we're going to be resuming production on this leather vest. I'm not entirely sure where we left off last time, so I'm going to kind of recap over what we have done a little bit. We've cut out all the pieces of leather. I have punched the holes where I would like the holes to be, and I'm going to show you guys real quick how I set the eyelets, which is a pretty important part of this whole process. Well, actually, this one here I haven't punched the holes in yet, but you can see it's the mirror piece to this one here. And this will actually be sitting, this is this piece. So I measured out, and I want the holes to be equidistant, so you can use your ring divider or a ruler or just really whatever you have. So that's how far apart I have them. And I'm going to move these out of the way. Sorry, getting my head on straight. You want it kind of mirror image. So let's make sure we're capturing this on the camera. And I'm just going to mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now what we're gonna do is, if I can find it, well, oh good gravy. I don't know where any of my stuff is. I'm in the middle of a couple of different projects. Here we are. We're going to have a cutting board. Going to have a hammer. Going to have a 1/4 inch punch. And this is going to be quite loud, but this is just how we punch the holes. So we find where we marked it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And don't ever guess when you're trying to find your hole placement. Okay, and that was 6. Always double check where it's supposed to be. That way you don't, like, once you punch a hole on this, it's pretty much punched. Like, that's it. That's what we're working with. And whenever you have one side done, something that I really like to do is to use a leather awl to just mark where the holes are going to be on the mirror piece. Now again, with something like this piece where it's all lacing together, you don't have to worry nearly so much about it being like perfect, but I mean, it's your project. You have it be however meticulously perfect or however freeform as you would like. So now I'm going to punch a couple more holes. And now I'm going to show you guys, because a lot of this project is going to get done off camera just because there's so much going on here. These are the needles that I use. They're a lacing needle. And you can see here, it's just a flat piece of metal that's split on one end with some little tines in it. And these little tines that you can see right there hold on to your leather. So whenever you're doing your piece, like you've got your lacing, and you could be using flat calf lacing from Tandy Leather or this stuff that I think I got at like Michael's or Hobby Lobby maybe. I don't know. It's essentially the same product, and we have a craft knife. And you don't just want a flat edge. You want a sliced edge. So I actually just place the knife and then I pull my lacing. So see how it got at that nice kind of tapered off point? So then you can open up your lacing needle and feed your lacing in, just kind of as far as it will comfortably go. And then usually right here is where you can either hammer it with your mallet, or you can use nylon gel pliers and just squeeze it down. And this embeds those two little teeth into the lacing. That way it's not going to be pulling out. So I'm going to show you how to start the lacing. I'm going to do it down here. So we have all of these little holes punched, and I'm going to, you can tell on the lacing there's a wrong side that's kind of rough, and then a right side that's very shiny and finished. I'm going to slide it through with the wrong side facing up until I have like just a little bit fed through like that, hanging out the front. And now I just drop my needle and I grab it here on my lacing and then just follow it up. And that way I don't have any twists or anything in my lacing. And then I kind of bring it like it's going, whoo, and then I really hope that sound effect helped. I know it does for me. But it's swooping around, trying to keep so that whenever I enter, it's that flat side, underside of the lacing again. And we could just do a basic whip stitch all the way around like that, but I'm going to drop my needle, grab it nice and flat right here again, pull it all the way back out, and then bring it to where it's feeding in underneath that piece of lace like that. And again, it's that fuzzy underside poking up. Pull it through, and you can see that's how I keep from any little twists and kinks and things from driving me crazy. So that's one stitch. Drop my needle, pull it around, and you don't have to do that every time. I personally have a lot more success doing that because then at this point in the stitching, I don't have to wrestle with any little twists and stuff. Eep. I do, though, get tangled in every single tool that I leave laying around because I will never learn my lesson. So following it around, just coming right through this top part here. This is how it's looking on the back. And feeding through. So there's another stitch. And I'm going to continue this around until I get to the corner. I try whenever I'm cutting my lace to not do more than what I can pull tight in one arm span, because if I have to set it down and then keep pulling, it's just kind of tedious. And the lacing does start to break down and suffer from the friction of being pulled through so many times. So I found a balance over the years of doing this that sometimes a little shorter is better, you know. And so I'm just going to keep coming around because I'd like to show you guys a full around the corner, as well as how I like to incorporate a piece of thick leather for boning, which I can't remember if I already shot video of the thick boning. But what I did was I used a strap cutter. I'm going to do 2 stitches through this hole coming up onto the corner. Normally if this were just a regular, like a corner like this one, I would do like 2 there, 2 there, and 2 there. Like in these 3 holes, I would do 2 stitches in each, and that would help expand me around the corner. But here, since I have a much wider area between the holes and the edge than what I do here, I actually punched another hole. You can maybe see a little better on the back side. I punched another hole here. That way it'll bring me to the tip and keep my boning from sliding out the bottom. So this is why, I keep my nylon jaw pliers around. It's because sometimes getting it to go through a hole for the second or the third time can be a little challenging, and instead of forcing my fingers and making it hurt, I just grab my nylon jaw, grip it, pull it through. There's no reason to cause yourself more difficulty or more like strain and pain on your fingers and joints than what you have to. Okay, so now you can see I've got that. This again is how it's looking on the back. And now I'm going to enter into this hole. And I could have punched a slightly larger hole here, since I'm going to have like quite a few stitches taking me around this edge. I'm going to need to find the boning that I was using. Because again, it's been like, I hate doing this, but it's been like, it's been a couple of weeks since I shot the last bit of video on this project. And I really have been needing and wanting to finish this project. But we've had so much custom work and we were traveling. Just life happened as it do. Okay, so now I've gotten my third stitch through. And so see how that's starting to really nicely come up around the edge there? And it's the difference between an unfinished edge and the stitched edge. It has a really nice look. That's how it looks on the back. It's pretty cool, I think. Like, I love the way it's so subtle, but I mean, makes all the world of difference. And if I had used a lighter colored leather or a different color of lacing, you can, so many different effects you can get with this. Okay, so let me rummage a bit so I can show you guys how I do the boning, because you can see here there's a nice thick piece of leather kind of incorporated, and it keeps it a little stiffer and it keeps it from rolling, and it's just, but you don't ever have to worry about it bending or breaking entirely. So I'm pretty sure I've got some pieces, yeah, tucked away right here, because I'm a hoarder. But yeah, I went through with a strap cutter and sliced a bunch of really thick saddle skirting. And let me see, like this one, you can see I went ahead and tapered the ends down just a little bit, and that's pretty nice, but it's a little too short for what we're doing right here. Sorry for the traffic noises. It's a beautiful day outside, and I did not want to have the windows shut and the air conditioner on. So I'm going to pick my next shortest leather piece. So it's a little too long. That is what leather shears are for. Trimming it down to length. And now, I'm going to use, and I'm sure that there's a name for this tool that I just can't remember. I think it's like a skiver or a skiver, but it's this really cool metal tool that has a very sharp razor blade in it. These two screws hold down the tension here to hold that blade in there. And what I'm going to do is put my cutting board down. I'm just gonna, you can see that kind of shaved it down just a hair. See how it's a little thinner? And I'm just training it down like that. And that helps it kind of grip into my lacing. And then I'm just gonna, the key here is to take off just a little at a time, because you can always shave off more, but you're going to be hard pressed to put more back on. And so sometimes whenever the end gets kind of funky, meh. There we go. You can just pull it off with your fingernail. wipe the excess leather off, put it back in its drawer so I don't like accidentally potato peel my skin off with it. That's like my biggest phobia with that tool, is that I'm just gonna horribly mess up and like get myself. It's watched too many like creepy movies here lately, I guess. But little scrap leather bits go right into my potted plant because they do an excellent job of retaining moisture in the mulch. So the way that this is gonna sit, it's actually just like that. So it sits with the flat side against the leather. And I'm going to be holding it onto the back with my fingers. And I'm coming around to I'm going to re-enter into this hole that those two are already in. So here comes the nylon gel pliers to help. Pulling a little tightly. Again, making sure I don't have any kinks or loops or anything. Feeding through just right there. And pulling tight. I remembered I could have dug out the book that has the diagram of how to do this stitch. Before I go any further though, I want to loosen this stitch that I just did and tuck this end of my homemade boning in there. And you're going to have to hold it kind of carefully for the next couple of stitches, just to make sure it doesn't get away from you. So there's the next stitch. And this is something that if you wanted to do like a lining or anything like that, you would just want to make sure that all the holes on the edge are lined up. And then you could go through and you could use this stitching to put the two pieces together to put a lining on it. I personally didn't line mine because I feel like if a piece of leather is going to get dry rot or something, I want to be able to see it. I don't want it to be hidden by the lining, and the lining might also trap in moisture or anything, whereas if you just leave it bare leather on the inside, you can still clean it. And the way that I clean my leather is just with some vodka and lemon juice. The alcohol pulls the moisture. Well, I spritz it on there. I don't like, soak it or anything. I just spritz it on there. The alcohol pulls out the moisture. The lemon juice kind of disinfects and freshens a little bit, and then you just drink the rest. So, so use whatever vodka you like. I doubled up on that one because I want to keep these these little laces like as parallel or parallel to each other and perpendicular to the edge as I can. So sometimes you just need to add in a stitch. Do it at your own discretion. There's not really like a science to it. But you can see here now, it's really starting to come through. It's getting us a very nice racked edge. This is how it's looking on the inside. That weird spot right there is where I did 2 stitches in the same spot. And now I'm going to get to show you guys how I splice in a new piece of lacing. So I'm doing a couple more. This will probably be my last one. So I've done a completed stitch here. Because you don't want to give yourself not enough lace to work with because it can be really difficult. I can do one more. Chronically, like, oh yeah, we can do one more. So I'm going to feed it through like I was going to come back around, but now on the underside, I'm actually just going to take this and thread through as far as I can under here. going to grab the tip of my needle with my nylon gel pliers, and I'm going to pull through. I went a little too far. There we are. And so that hides all of that extra lacing there in that little notch, and it's a little bit snugger over here where I don't have the boning. But now I'm going to pull out a fresh piece of lace. And this one, like whenever I'm on the road, I actually just measure off a bunch. I do like a full arm span, and then just cut it right off of the spool the way that I showed y'all earlier. And that way I don't have to worry about, like I'll cut like 10 of those the way that I want them, and then just have them in my little project box. So smushed that down. And so now I'm going to feed back through 4 or 5 stitches. And I do this with the fuzzy side down. Now the main mistake to make here is to just keep pulling and pulling and then just pull your stuff right out, and then you just lace back through. So I just pull it right in snug like that. And now using my fingers to brace it on the back, I'm going to grab my lace and pull all the way through. And now I'm going to feed in and continue just like it never happened. Now, the way that you would splice it in if you had 2 layers would be a little different, but I'm not going to worry about that so much in this video because there is so much other stuff going on in this video that I wanted to cover with you guys. And then we'll just continue lacing around. And this lacing step really is, I mean, truly optional. But I do recommend it if you want to make something that's like really showing off your skills. And it does help encase the boning in the edges. Another thing that you can do that I did on another vest that I'm working on, because I'm doing like 3 vests right now, is I was on the road actually and had left all of my boning at home. So what I did, if I can find a piece, is I actually went through and folded the excess in. And so it gave me a little bit more stiffness, but I didn't have to worry about any kind of boning, and then it ended up giving me the perfect amount of so that the stitching here where the boning is the same thickness as the stitching here, but I've just doubled up on the thickness of my leather. So that's an option that you can do as well. And this is how the eyelets will look once we've set them, which I guess is going to be the next thing I'm going to show you guys, since I've already gotten to show you how to splice stuff in. I don't know why, I'm just going to do one more stitch. But yeah, just grabbing it and pulling all the way out. It does so much, because let me show you what happens whenever I don't do that. I'll pull through. You can see it gets kind of twisty. You can straighten it up with your fingers a bit. And then I don't pull all the way out. I just grab my needle and start going through again. Well, that one it worked out really lucky, but sometimes I promise it gets twists and stuff in it. I'm not just making it up. But, and it's just something I'm in such a habit now of just dropping the needle and coming and just picking it up and coming right back. That way you want your lacing to stay nice and flat. That's the point of having flat lacing, is getting it to lay all nice and smooth and such. So I'm going to show you guys how to set an eyelet. which a lot of it is just having the right tools. Like, that's so much of leather working. Oh my gosh, I need to clean up my mess, you guys. Like, I swear, it's like, it just grows. It's so depressing. Well, it's not depressing until I, like, look at it and I'm like, ah, this is a mess. Because I can't find anything that I need, you know. Darn it, Vaughn. Why do you live like this? Oh, there it is. I've got it buried underneath like 20 other things, naturally. Come back. So this is an Eyelet Setter. It's the anvil that has the shape, and then the driver. Anvil and driver. But that's how they'll fit together. So let me dig out an eyelet. What color did they want? I believe they said silver. But they might have said brass. I'll show you on a different piece because I don't want to risk doing the wrong color. So here we go. You would just, what you would do is you would just sit the eyelet on the anvil like that. And then you would place your piece of leather face down over the eyelet because you want it to sit like that, right? And you want to make sure that it's nice and lined up. And then you would just position the anvil right onto the top there. And then you hammer it. And ideally I would not be doing this on this table. I'd be doing it on my heavy leather table over there that's covered in stuff. But as you hammer it, it just rounds down and it makes a nice little spot for your lacing to go through. So then you just do that into all the holes that you've punched for doing your eyelets. And another design element that I've incorporated into this piece for, I've got it over here on this one, is on the shoulder strap. I actually have 4 holes punched. That way you have an option to bring it in a little bit or to bring it out a little bit with your lacing. And the way that this would work is you can have them laced through each other like this over each of them, or you can have it laced to where it's side by side. So it gives you like 3 settings plus all the expansion that you could want in between these ends. So I am going to continue stitching all of the way around this piece. I'm going to set the rest of the eyelets, and then I will meet you guys right back here, hopefully today, maybe 2 more weeks from now. Sorry, I'm running out of patience with myself. It's very important to be patient with yourself and the medium that you're working with, to practice until you get better and better, until you feel like you've mastered the technique, and then practice some more. You're never accomplished or experienced enough to not revisit your foundation techniques, and there's always something to polish up on, even if it's just cleaning up the disaster of a pigsty that you function in, or making sure that your lacing's very nice and neat, or there's always something to improve upon. And then persistent. Don't give up. You can do it. So I'll meet y'all right back here very shortly. Hey everybody. So we're back here for a minute. I'm going to show you guys how to complete the edging around a piece. Like how to kind of splice it in to make it look continuous all the way around. So if you remember, whenever we started, we left ourselves a little tail. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get in here, and you can use an awl or a pin or something to kind of pull it out, but I'm going to have this be trapped by the lacing on the back side here. So you can see I've recently completed a stitch. So I'm going to come through the back. And as I wrap around, I want to make sure that that tail is encased in my lacing. One stitch. I'm going to do a second through it just because that's how I like to do my corners, is 2, 2, 2 into each hole. Just, I feel like it keeps it from curling and stuff and makes just a nice even effect. Now also, whenever you're lacing through, you want to make sure that your lacing is on this side of the needle. And that way it actually makes a proper, like, loop. Doesn't mean you can't have it the other way, it just gives you a very different effect. So just thread in the lace through. And we continue until we have laced through all of the holes. Excuse me. Coming up on it now. Now again, if you have two pieces layered together, this is going to happen a little differently. This is how I do it on one thickness. Okay, so we're coming through that hole, just like so. And now from here, I actually want to come up between that lace and the back. And now I'm going to thread through it like regular. So see how that kind of gives it a little bit more. And you can kind of wiggle and squish it with your fingers and get it to line up, look more regular. But it doesn't look like we missed a stitch at all. So we're going to go around to the back side here. And I'm actually going to feed through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. Grab it with my pliers, start pulling through, but I want to make sure that there's no twists or anything, because those will get bulgy. And just pull it right on through. You can use scissors or flush cutters or whatever you have and trim the ends off. Make sure all your ends are nice and neatly trimmed, and that's that. We now have a completely edged piece. So on this one I still need to go through and punch the holes and set the eyelets. But in this would be the side panel that comes around onto the side of the rib cage under the arm. So that's that. I'll meet you guys right back here again shortly. Hey everybody, we're putting the final touches on the leather bodice mini vest. I don't know what to call it, but I guess mini vests really, because sure, why not? We're adding in the final touches on this, and the last thing that we're doing is placing the eyelets. So I wanted to show you guys how I go about doing this. And so you can see here we have our anvil, we have our 1/4 inch eyelet, and these are from tandyleather.com. Though I do prefer to kind of get them in store I've punched the holes in my leather with a 1/4 inch punch. You place the eyelet there in the anvil. I'm going to slide the leather right down over it. Now we have the driver, which has this nice little shape there, and we're going to place it just like that. And now I've got my rawhide hammer, and I'm going to, I just do 3 hits to start, because you can see it was already starting to split just a little bit, and I don't want it to do that. And so if you do it a little at a time, as opposed to just forcing it all the way down all at once, making sure it's nice and positioned, I'm adding in the next eyelet. So now I'm going to go back to the first one and hammer it down the rest of the way. And it's still split, but sometimes that just happens. Whenever that does happen, I just move my anvil kind of around to make sure that it stays nice and flush, because I don't want any little pokey spots. And again, if I do have any problems with pokey spots, I just take my driver, kind of pound it just so that it's nice and smooth. I'm going to come back over to this side. And there we go. So sometimes this is what we're going for. Sometimes that happens. But if it does, that is not the end of the world. I have quite a few like these on my own personal mini vest, and it holds up really well. I mean, it is perfectly smooth there on the back. So, let me see. It looks perfectly fine from the front. So now the next step is to go through and cut all of our lacing that we're going to be using. I'm going to be using the like 3/16 maybe paracord. Let me grab the bag and I'll show you guys. I'll be right back. So I'm back. This is the paracord that I'm using, but I'm not particularly like committed to just this one color or size or thickness. I basically use whatever I can get my hands on. It's just I found that it is much less expensive and actually a little bit more durable to get paracord than what it is to just buy shoelaces. So we've got a paracord, we've got a lighter. We're gonna light the lighter, melt the tip of the paracord very gently. Set that aside where it's not going to melt anything, hopefully. Slobber on our fingers and just shape it a little bit more. Had I aglets, I would use them maybe, but this works. So, now you can see we have all of our pieces here. And I'm going to start, there goes my lighter. Make a spot for that. I'm going to start with joining up the back, because that's pretty straightforward. So these two pieces are going to get joined up right across there. In general, if this is the length of what we're going to be doing, I try to give myself, that's twice the length, so it's 4 times the length, so that's 8 times the length for it to lace up. And that you can always come back and trim it down later if you need it shorter. But once you cut it and it's too short, that's kind of what you're stuck working with. So I always give myself just a little bit more. So I've snipped it, and I'm going to come through with my lighter, being very careful to not melt it to the point of dripping, because then it will like fuse to your flesh and that hurts. So I'm just doing a little bit on one and a little bit on another. I try to avoid making it smoke, because you know, burning plastic and all that, it's just so good for you. It is really coming down outside, y'all. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't know if you can hear me over that. So there we go. Getting a little bit of, just enough to get my fingers wet. If I were wise, I'd have like a dish of water over here. But really puts that handmade spin on it whenever it's just slobber, you know? Sorry. Okay, also just full hand span to shoulder. So I guess this is going to be about 2 yards worth. And I'm going to go through and just lace it up the way that I would a boot. Starting at the top and then kind of working our way down. I don't know if you can see here. So we're starting at the top. I'm just going to thread in from the front and then up from behind. And now on this side, I'm just going to come around from behind. Then I'm going to take the next side and I'm going to come around from behind. And I like to do them alternately because it does give it a very nice, even, uniform look. As opposed to if I just went all down one side first and then went down with the other length. And also, this is just the way that I enjoy lacing it. There are a bunch of different ways that you can lace stuff up, but I did find that this gives us a lot of control. Also, sometimes the end detaches. We do not want that. So what we'll do is I'll pinch it from much farther back, pull it down so that it lines back up to the end. I'm going to snip it freshly. There we are. And I'm going to remelt the end here. Because the goal is to get the black and white plastics to fuse. Well, it's a nylon, but it's basically a plastic. Shape it down just a little bit. Okay, so now we can keep going. And this does give us a little bit of wiggle room to open it up more if we end up needing it wider. But for the most part, I did make this top to fit the specifications that the client gave me. So in the booth, I would have been happy with just a little bit more hanging down out the back. So there you can see. And then I'm just going to do, I guess, an overhand knot. Just wrap the two lengths around my finger and then pull through. That way it sits like that. Okay. And also, so that we can know, this part here is roughly the same length as the back. So whenever I pull off the amount of, not yarn, paracord for across the full part of the bust, I'm going to give myself a little bit longer there, but everything from there is shorter, so I'm going to keep cutting and melting and lacing, and then I'll meet y'all over on the mannequin after I have all the lacing done, and I'll show you just how it comes together. So I'll see you guys shortly. Hey everybody, I got all the cords trimmed and burnt, and I kind of have them haphazardly draped about me. And we have our dress form here. And she's actually a little small busted for this vest. So we'll keep that in mind as we size her into it. But the shoulder here will come around to the shoulder on this side. Because we're going to have that side piece that comes around and like gathers down. And now on the shoulder, you have the option of overlapping and threading through both, if I can get it, down through the top and then up through the bottom. And again, since this top is a little large for this mannequin, I'm going to do it here on this one. And then I'm going to pull the ends to even. And you could do it this way, or I'll show you on the other side an option for how to do it. Because also on some of the pieces that I do in the booth, I'll have another 2 sets of holes here to where we could have it overlap even further if we wanted. Okay, so there's that side. Now we have the front side coming around here, and if we wanted it larger, we could bring it through from the top on this one to below, and then through there, and through there. And then we could knot it in that same overhand knot. Let me scooch this forward, kind of tangled in a knot here. So you can see how that sets, and that's really nice. And that actually allows us to really open up the shoulders too. If I wanted to, I'd just go ahead and knot it. And then you can just have it sit like that, and you can put little beads and stuff on the ends of these, feathers or something. Like, I mean, you can get really, really creative with how you accessorize this to suit just whatever you're doing. Also, you don't have to use paracord. You can use leather lacing. I prefer the paracord because I just find it holds up a lot longer. With the leather, you kind of have to be gentle with it because you don't know if there might have been a splice in the cord. I mean, if you're making your own leather lacing, then you do know firsthand, you know, what it's been through, where it'll hold up. But leather just has a tendency to develop weak spots in it, and it does deteriorate over time, especially with exposure to moisture. Okay, so here we have this one. It's just a storming away outside today, you guys. So here we have that, and I think that's looking really nice. I'm going to scooch this back again for us so you can see. So now, this is the front piece. These are, I draped them all on my body and now I forget what's what. Okay, these are for over the boobs. These are on the sides. Okay, got it. Sorry. So now we have the side panel. This one will sit like this on our mannequin. So I'm going to come around to the side here, like the side and the back. And again, on all of these, you always have the option to overlayer it. Now this one, the holes don't completely line up, but you could still do it if you wanted to. Or you could at least overlayer a little bit. Which again, since this mannequin's, she's just not a G. Which she was fine for making the template on, but once I added in some of the extensions and stuff. Now to have them overlapped like this, since there's no room for them to come across in the middle, we're going to do the same wrap that I was showing you guys how to do on the shoulder, where you make little X's. Just like that. If you can see how that's happening. And as usual, I gave myself way more than what I needed, but more trimming and adjusting can be done later on. And there's all different kinds of decorative lacing and things that a person can do. Okay, now one of the boob ones. So here we have a nice long length. This was 2 full arm spans of paracord. Now this one I'm going to do just as a boot as well. Like a boot lacing, like for a shoe, like a tall shoe, if that makes sense. Sorry. I've come to realize a few of y'all have been like, what did you say? What are you saying? So I do talk kind of funny sometimes. I'm sorry about that. But it's just how it happens, I suppose. Okay. So now that I've done this first one, I can pull it a little tighter, and you can see how they'll start to sit together. And I want to be nice and repetitive about this one laced under first, so now I'm going to lace this one. I'm going to grab this one and lace through. Now remember, we could always overlap it if we needed to. The human body is an ever-changing canvas, so you never know how something's going to fit one day compared to the next. And it gets easier to lace as you move along because your laces get shorter. I got startled because somebody honked and then I whacked the camera. I'm so sorry. That was as bad as the dogs. Freaking out every time somebody drives by. There we go. And it's just slow and steady, but I mean, once you do this once, you don't really have to do it again. With the exception of down the front and center, but that's just a little bit. I really love all the edge stitching on this. Like, it makes me so happy. It was a ton of work, but so totally worth it. And if you're very solid about your bust size and you don't want to have to deal with the lacing, you could have overlapped them and riveted them. I may do that in a future tutorial. But y'all saw how long this one took me, so don't hold your breath or anything. And this one actually has, looks like I gave myself an extra hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lace through from above on this one, because that'll help bind it in just a little tighter there on the underside. To be off camera. Okay, so there's one side. Now let's bring her around and see if we can't do the other. Okay, so here we have the lacing for this back piece. I try to start off with my lacing very nice and even. And I want the sides to mirror each other, so. Another overhand knot. Coming into the side here, nice long cordage. Getting all kinds of tangled here. There we go. Ah, wrong one. This part can be a little time consuming, but that's okay. Okay, so now we've gotten to the front part. And for this one, I actually start lacing from the bottom up. That way, if you're, you know, kind of stuffing your boobs into it, it gives you a lot more control about where they're going. And it has a much more, like, lifting effect than what it would if you're starting from the top down. And again, I just do a regular bootlace style weave. I'm so used to doing this on myself that it's odd to be doing it at this angle. Sorry. Now we'll get that adjusting going. And then here I usually just do a little bow. And then I just tuck the sides of the bow into the top of the cups there. So this is the best, you guys. I'm very excited to be able to share how I made this with you guys, starting from the design all the way up to you know, the showing y'all how I do the lacing, like on the edges, just all of it. I really hope that this tutorial took me way longer than, like, by like a million than what I had originally intended. So I wanted to thank you guys so much for your patience with me, because a lot of you were like kind of like Yvonne, when is this tutorial coming out? Because I'm like chopping at the bit, and I'm like, sorry guys, sorry. So I'm actually going to grab my vest, if I can find it, and show y'all how I put mine on and how mine is held up over the past 2 years of almost daily wear. So I'll be right back. Do you know where my vest is? I don't know. So this is mine. I had it wadded up in my purse, just to prove that it will hold up to. I have not been taking care of this top for 2 years. Like, I kind of, anything that happens to it, if something spills on it, if I get rained on in it, I just kind of, I abuse it because I want to see what all it can hold up to. And I wear a lot of t-shirts that are open on the back, and I wear this when I'm cycling, whenever I'm doing yoga, whenever I'm hooping, all kinds of stuff. So it's held up to a lot of wear and tear. It smells actually really nice, like the leather finish that I use, as well as lavender oil, which is what I spritz it with. Lavender oil and like vodka, and then lemon juice too. But just to keep it from getting any wonky smells, because you can't really put it through the wash. It's really like kind of supple in comparison to this one, which is still nice and stiff. So I just take it, put it on, so you can see how it kind of sits. Also with this one, I didn't add the boning and stuff to it. This was very much a prototype piece. Like, I actually wear it in the booth to show people. Let me take it back off so I can show you. Whenever I show them, it's like, well, because they'll ask me, like, well, how much is a top like that? And I'm like, well, they start at $200. And they'll be like, whoa, what? And I'm like, well, see all that stitching? That's what makes it expensive. If I don't do the stitching, that's what the edge looks like. And it curls up funny and just all kinds of stuff. So, and also on this one, I gave it the joined shoulders. I didn't give it the adjustable, which is the one thing that I do kind of lament a bit. Whenever I'm not wearing it, I just keep the front lacing knotted up to the side. Now, I don't know, I guess, warning, I'm about to play my boobs a bit. Like, I don't know, anybody who's ever worn a bra is going to be able to empathize greatly with this. I just thread it through. Yeah, if boobs offend you, please look away, I guess. I don't know. But I feel like for those of y'all who are making this for yourself, I want you to see really how it happens. So I'm not trying to be vulgar or provocative or anything. Like, it's like, I don't know. Brown chicken, wow cow. Brown, like, cue stripper music. So I'm just lacing it up kind of loosely at first. I start cinching as I go. Now also, this one's kind of it looks like a fuller coverage, but again, this one's designed for like a double D. This one's designed for a G. That's a big difference. It's about the difference between a B and a double D. So you can see just the way that it cinches in, it kind of brings everything up a little bit. And then I double knot it just because I don't, it's very embarrassing when my boobs pop in public and it's like, oh, my lacing. So I just tuck that in, and now you're going to do a little bit of a lift and tuck. That way everything's very comfortable. I'm going to turn this way though, because that is a little indecent. Okay, so I've done a lift and tuck, and then I actually just position the fabric a little bit more to sit however I want it. Again, you want to make sure that it's not like a bunch of folds and stuff underneath it, but that's how it goes on. That's how it looks in the back. And that's how it goes. I like it because it gives everything a very nice lift. You can have it lift and separated. You can have it lift and smushed. I'm a fan of lift and smush because I like them being out of the way, because I wear this when I'm in the garden. And whenever I'm reaching in to dig for stuff, I don't want like a bunch of push-up padding and stuff in the way, but it makes me really happy to look down and be like, hey, boobs. So it's, I don't know, I feel like a person, if they feel comfortable with how they look and if they like it, then by all means embrace that. And I grew up as an A cup, so I took gaining 80 pounds to grow boobs, so I was like, I'm gonna rock this until gravity betrays me and I have to like roll them up to fit them in my clothes. But I've seen, I know this is not gonna end well for anyone involved. I'm gonna age like milk, you guys. Like, I'm just saying. So that's why we have things like leather vests to help us turn into a nice cultured cheese, if you will. I'm gonna edit that. Oh my god, I can't believe what I'm talking about. But yeah. So, so this is it, you guys. I'd love to hear any ideas or comments or just questions that you might have. Please leave those down below. And this is just one of infinite possible designs that you could do. I mean, if you have it joined at the shoulder, you could have cute little caps coming off of it. You could have it come down longer if you wanted, especially with the incorporation of the boning. That really opens up like a whole plethora of things that are probably worth experimenting with. I'm just saying. So yeah. If you have any questions, leave them down below, or you can contact me on Facebook. You can just search Back to Earth Creations, and that's all of my contact stuff. Is like our website is backtoearthcreations.com, our Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Back to Earth Creations. We're on DeviantArt. And if you guys enjoy our free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, as well as participate in my bi-monthly fairy house giveaways, get like monthly loot crate style crafting kits or gifts mailed to you, please consider becoming a patron. There's a link down in the video description below where you can go and it'll talk all about that. So thank you guys so much again for hanging out with me. I do hope that this was helpful to you. I'd love to see what y'all create if you want to share that to our Facebook page. And just happy crafting, you guys. I'll see you around. Bye.